Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Starbound. He watched the stars through the big window in front of him. The ship moved slowly through space, far from Earth. Jake had been doing this job for 10 years now. He explored new places in the galaxy and made maps of star systems that nobody had seen before. "Captain, we're getting close to the Kepler sector," said Lisa Martinez from her pilot seat. She was a good pilot, maybe the best Jake had ever worked with. Her hands moved over the controls like she was playing music. "Good. Take us to the next system on our list," Jake said. He looked at the star charts on his screen. They had been out here for 3 months, checking empty space and dead planets. It was quiet work, but Jake liked it that way. Tony Rodriguez was fixing something under a control panel. He was the ship's engineer, and he could fix anything that broke. Tony was always happy, always telling jokes to make the crew laugh. "Hey, Captain, want to hear something funny?" he called out. "Not now, Tony. We're working," Jake said, but he was smiling. Amy Carter sat at the communications desk. She listened to radio signals from across the galaxy. Most of the time, she heard nothing but static. Sometimes she picked up messages from other human ships or alien trading posts. Amy was young, maybe 25, and she had joined the crew. Just last year, Jake looked around at his small crew. These 3 people had become like family to him. They traveled together through the dark spaces between stars, seeing things that most humans would never see. Earth seemed very far away when you were out here. The galaxy was a big place, and humans were still new to it. They had been exploring space for about 200 years, but they were careful. They made friends with alien races, traded goods, and learned about different cultures. Humans were known as the peaceful ones, the ones who always tried to talk instead of fight. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on the radio," Amy said. She put her hand to her ear, listening carefully to her headphones. "It sounds like a distress signal." Jake walked over to her station. "Where is it coming from?" "From the Epsilon 7 station. That's the Zelani research base about 2 hours away from here." Jake knew about the Zelani. They were a smart alien race that studied science and built things. They had been friendly to humans for many years. If they were sending a distress signal, something was very wrong. "Lisa, change our course. Take us to Epsilon 7 as fast as you can," Jake ordered. The ship turned and sped up. Jake felt the engines working harder under his feet. He had a bad feeling about this. In all his years of exploring, he had never heard a distress signal from a Zelani station. "Amy, try to contact them. See if anyone answers," Jake said. Amy worked at her controls, sending messages to the station. She waited for an answer, but nothing came back. "No response, Captain. The signal is still playing, but nobody is answering our calls." 2 hours later, they arrived at Epsilon 7. What they saw made Jake's stomach turn cold. The station was broken into pieces. Parts of it were floating in space, twisted and burned. Some pieces were still glowing red from fires that had burned inside. "My God," Lisa whispered. "What happened here?" Jake stared at the destroyed station. In all his years in space, he had never seen anything like this. The Zelani were peaceful people, just like humans. Who would do something like this to them? "Amy, scan for life signs. See if anyone is still alive," Jake said. Amy worked at her controls. After a few minutes, she looked up with surprise. "Captain, I'm getting a weak signal from one of the larger pieces. Someone is still alive over there." "Lisa, take us closer. Tony, get the rescue suits ready." "We're going over there." They put on their space suits and flew over to the broken piece of the station. Inside, they found a young Zelani scientist hiding in a storage room. His name was Kethfer, and he was badly hurt. Tony helped him into their ship, while Jake and Lisa looked around the destroyed station. This was not an accident, Jake said, looking at the burn marks on the walls. Someone attacked this place. Back on the ship, they gave Kethver medical care. When he was strong enough to talk, he told them a story that made Jake's blood run cold. They came from nowhere, Kethver said in his broken English. Big ships, black ships. They did not talk, did not try to make peace. They just started shooting. Who were they? Jake asked. The Vorthic Empire. They are conquerors, destroyers of worlds. They have been moving across the galaxy for many years, taking planets and killing everyone who lives there. Jake had never heard of the Vorthic before. Why did they attack your station? Because we were here. Because we existed. The Vorthic do not allow other races to live. They kill everything that is not them. Kethver told them that the Vorthic had a huge fleet of warships. They had already destroyed 17 different alien civilizations. They moved from system to system, killing everyone they found. They are coming to human space next, Kethver said. I heard them talking. They think humans are weak, easy to kill. They call you the soft ones, because you always try to make peace. Jake felt something strange inside his chest. It was like anger, but deeper and stronger. He had never felt anything like it before. We have to warn Earth, he said. Amy, send a message to Admiral Hayes. Tell him everything we've learned here. As the Starbound flew away from the destroyed station, Jake looked back at the floating pieces of metal and glass. The Vorthic had made a mistake. They thought humans were weak because they chose peace. They were about to learn that choosing peace and being weak were two very different things. Deep in his mind, Jake felt something old and dark starting to wake up. He did not understand what it was, but he knew that everything was about to change. The galaxy had been quiet for too long, and now someone had disturbed the silence. The sleeping war god was beginning to stir. Admiral Ryan Hayes stood in the command center on Earth, looking at the message from Captain Morrison. The words on the screen made his hands shake with anger. He had been a military officer for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. Get me President Sullivan on the line, he told his aide, and call General Collins. We need to meet right now. President Katie Sullivan was in her office when the call came. She was a kind woman who had spent her life making peace between different groups of people. She believed that problems could be solved by talking, not fighting. Admiral Hayes, what's so urgent? She asked when his face appeared on her screen. Ma'am, we have a situation. A hostile alien race called the Vorthic has destroyed Azalani research station. They're moving toward human space, and they plan to kill everyone they find. President Sullivan felt her stomach drop. Are you sure? Maybe this is a misunderstanding. We should try to contact them, open talks. Ma'am, with respect, they don't want to talk. They've already destroyed 17 civilizations. They call use the soft ones, because we try to make peace instead of war. General Peter Collins arrived at the meeting 20 minutes later. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles. Unlike most humans in 2387, Collins remembered what his people used to be like. Show me the data, he said, sitting down at the conference table. Admiral Hayes played the recording from Captain Morrison's ship. They listened to Kethver's story about the attack on Epsilon 7. When it finished, the room was quiet for a long time. How long do we have? General Collins asked. Their advance fleet should reach our outer colonies in about 2 weeks, Hayes replied. The main fleet will be here in a month. President Sullivan shook her head. There has to be another way. We can evacuate the outer colonies, move everyone to safer areas. We can try to negotiate. Ma'am, they don't negotiate. They just kill, Collins said. His voice was hard. I've been studying old military records. Our ancestors faced enemies like this before. They knew how to deal with them. On the outer colony of New Haven, Ben Parker was having a normal day. He was the colony administrator, which meant he helped solve problems and made sure everyone was happy. New Haven was home to 50,000 people who lived in peace and grew food for other human settlements. Ben was in his office when the first Vorthix ships appeared in the sky. They were huge black things that looked like metal spiders. Ben had never seen anything so frightening in his life. He tried to contact the ships on the radio. "This is Ben Parker, administrator of New Haven Colony. Welcome to our system. We come in peace and wish to open friendly relations with you." The answer came in the form of bright lights from the alien ships. The lights were weapons, and they burned everything they touched. Ben watched in horror as the buildings around him started to explode. "Everyone to the shelters," he shouted into his radio. "This is not a drill. We are under attack." But it was too late. The Vorthix ships moved over the colony like a storm, destroying everything. The attack lasted only an hour, but when it was over, 50,000 people were dead. The news reached Earth 6 hours later. President Sullivan sat in her office, crying as she read the reports. These were her people, and she had failed to protect them. All across human space, something strange started to happen. Dr. Elena Vasquez was a scientist who studied how human minds worked. She had equipment that could measure brain activity in people all over the galaxy. What she saw made her call Admiral Hayes immediately. "Sir, you need to see this," she said when he answered her call. "Something is happening to our people. Their brain patterns are changing." "What do you mean changing?" Hayes asked. "For the past 200 years, humans have had very low levels of aggression. We evolved past our violent nature. But now, after the attack on New Haven, those levels are going up fast. It's like something is waking up inside us." Hayes thought about this. "What exactly are you saying, Doctor?" "I'm saying that the peaceful nature we've had for centuries might not be natural. It might have been a choice we made. And now, when we're threatened, we're choosing something else." On the Starbound, Captain Morrison's crew was changing too. Tony Rodriguez, who used to joke and laugh all the time, was now quiet and serious. He spent his time drawing plans for new weapons, things that could hurt the Vorthix ships. "Where did you learn to design weapons, Tony?" Jake asked. "I don't know, Captain. The ideas just come to me. Like I've always known how to make these things, but I forgot until now." Lisa Martinez was different too. She flew the ship with new skills that seemed to come from nowhere. She could predict how enemy ships would move, could think like a fighter. Pilot even though she had never been in a real battle. Amy Carter had changed the most. She was intercepting Vorthix communications and somehow understanding their language without being taught. She knew their military codes, their battle plans, their weaknesses. "How do you know all this?" Jake asked her. "I don't know, Captain. When I hear their voices, I just understand what they're saying. Like my brain knows how to fight them." Back on Earth, Admiral Hayes was meeting with his military leaders. They were planning humanity's defense, but they were also noticing changes in themselves. "Sir, we've been looking at the old military archives," said Colonel Danny Wright. "The files that were sealed away after the peace accords. There are weapons designs in there, battle strategies, things our ancestors knew that we forgot." "What kind of things?" Hayes asked. "Everything, sir. How to turn civilian ships into warships. How to make weapons from everyday materials. How to fight enemies that are bigger and stronger than us. It's like our ancestors were preparing for this day." General Collins nodded. "Our people weren't always peaceful. For thousands of years, we were warriors. We fought each other. We fought our environment. We fought everything. We were very good at war. But we chose peace, President Sullivan said. "We decided to be better than that." "Yes, ma'am. We chose peace when we didn't have to fight for survival. But now we do have to fight, and our old nature is coming back." Across the galaxy, the Vorthic War Commander Dexmo was reading reports about the humans. His intelligence officers told him that the species was weak, that they would surrender. "Quickly, they have no real military," one officer reported. "Their ships are for exploration and trade. Their soldiers are few and poorly trained. They have not fought a real war in 2 centuries. Dexmo looked at the data and smiled. "Good. We will take their worlds quickly and move on to the next sector. These soft ones will be easy prey." But War Commander Dexmo was wrong. He was looking at old information, data from before the awakening. He did not understand that humanity had not lost its ability to fight. They had simply put it to sleep, waiting for the day when they would need it again. That day had come in hidden facilities across human space. Old machines were starting to work again. Factories that had been closed for centuries began making weapons. Ships that had been used for peaceful purposes were being changed into tools of war. And in the minds of 4 billion humans, something ancient and powerful was waking up. The sleeping war god was opening its eyes, and it was angry. The Vorthic had made a terrible mistake. They thought that choosing peace meant being weak. They were about to learn that the most dangerous enemy is the one who chooses not to fight, until someone forces them to. The galaxy was about to see what humans were really capable when they stopped being peaceful and started being what they had always been underneath, the most dangerous predators their world had ever produced. War Commander Dexmo stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the red planet Mars grow larger on his screen. His fleet of 500 warships moved through space like a dark cloud. He had conquered many worlds, and this would be just another easy victory. "Commander, we are receiving signals from the human planet," his communications officer reported. "They are asking us to talk." Dexmo laughed. "Let them talk. Soon they will scream instead. Begin the attack." But as his ships moved closer to Mars, something was wrong. The planet was not defenseless like his spies had reported. There were ships waiting for them, hundreds of human ships that looked different from the peaceful traders he had seen before. "Where did these ships come from?" Dexmo demanded. "Unknown, Commander. Our intelligence said the humans had no military." "Fleet." The leading human ship sent a message across all frequencies. Admiral Hayes' voice was calm and cold. "This is Admiral Ryan Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. You have attacked human colonies and murdered our people. You will leave our space immediately or face the consequences." Dexmo was amused. "Tell the human that we are the Vorthic Empire. We do not leave. We take what we want." The human fleet moved into battle formation. At the front was a ship that Dexmo had never seen before, a massive warship called the UES Retribution. It was built for one purpose: to destroy enemies of humanity. "All ships, attack pattern Alpha," Admiral Hayes commanded. "Show them what we are made of." The battle began with a fury that shocked the Vorthic. The human ships moved in ways that seemed impossible. They worked together like parts of a single organism, each one knowing exactly what the others would do. Lisa Martinez was piloting a small fighter ship called the Valkyrie. She had never flown a combat mission before, but somehow she knew exactly what to do. She dodged between the huge Vorthic ships like a bird flying through a forest of trees. "This is Valkyrie 1. I'm going after their command ship," she radioed to Admiral Hayes. "Negative, Valkyrie 1. That ship is too heavily defended." But Lisa was already moving. She flew her small ship through a storm of enemy fire, using moves that should have been impossible. Other human pilots watched in amazement as she danced between the alien weapons. The Vorthic pilots could not understand what they were seeing. Lisa's ship moved like it was alive, predicting their shots before they fired. She was not just flying, she was hunting. On the surface of Mars, General Collins was preparing for the ground battle. 10,000 human soldiers waited in the red dust, watching the sky fill with enemy ships. Across from them, 50,000 Vorthic shock troops were landing in black dropships. "Remember," Collins told his officers, "they outnumber us 5-1. But we have something they don't have." "What's that, sir?" asked Lieutenant Kevin Clark. "We have 5,000 years of human warfare in our blood. We know how to fight when we're outnumbered. We know how to win when we should lose." The Vorthic commander, General Vexter, looked at the human forces through his binoculars. Such a small army against his mighty host, this would be over quickly. "Advance," he ordered. "Kill them all." The Vorthic soldiers marched forward in perfect lines, just like they had done on 17 other worlds. But when they got close to the human positions, something unexpected happened. The humans disappeared. Where did they go? Vexter demanded. His question was answered by explosions all around his army. The humans had not run away. They had hidden. They were using the rocky terrain of Mars, turning every hill and crater into a weapon. Sergeant Nicole Brown led a squad of 12 soldiers. They had been waiting in an old mining tunnel, watching the enemy through hidden cameras. When the aliens walked over their position, Nicole gave the signal. "Now," she whispered. Her squad came up from underground, right in the middle of the enemy army. They fought like demons, moving fast and hitting hard before disappearing again. The Vorthic soldiers spun around, trying to find targets, but the humans were already gone. All across the battlefield, the same thing was happening. Human soldiers appeared from nowhere, struck like lightning, and vanished before the enemy could react. They used the planet itself as their weapon, turning Mars into a trap. "This is impossible," General Vexter shouted. "How can such a small force fight like this?" Back in space, the battle was going badly for the Vorthic. Their ships were larger and more heavily armed, but the humans fought with a cleverness that made size meaningless. Captain Morrison's ship, the Starbound, had been converted into a stealth vessel. He and his crew were inside a Vorthic command ship, having snuck aboard during the battle. "Tony, can you access their computer systems?" Jake asked. "Already working on it, Captain," Tony replied. His fingers moved over the alien controls like he had been using them his whole life. "Got it. I'm downloading their battle plans." What they found in the Vorthic computers made Jake's blood run cold. The aliens had detailed records of 17 civilizations they had destroyed. Entire species wiped out, their planets turned into lifeless rocks. "They're not just conquerors," Amy whispered, reading the data. "They're killers. They enjoy destroying other races." Jake felt that strange anger growing inside him again. These creatures had murdered billions of innocent people, and they planned to do the same to humanity. "Download everything," he ordered. "We need to know how they fight, how they think, and then we're going to stop them." On Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez was studying the changes in human behavior. What she saw frightened and amazed her at the same time. "President Sullivan, you need to see this," she said during an emergency meeting. "The transformation is accelerating. Humans all over the galaxy are accessing genetic memories, abilities that we haven't used in centuries." "What kind of abilities?" the president asked. "Combat skills, tactical thinking, weapon design. It's like we have a library of warfare stored in our DNA, and it's all becoming available again." President Sullivan watched the battle reports from Mars. Her peaceful species was becoming something else, something that scared her. "Are we still human?" she asked. "We're more human than we've been in 200 years, General Collins replied. "This is what we really are when we stop pretending to be something else." In the Mars battle, the tide was turning. The Vorthik had expected to face a weak, disorganized enemy. Instead, they found themselves fighting an army that seemed to know their every move. Lieutenant Clark led a charge against a Vorthik stronghold. His soldiers moved like they had been fighting together for years, even though most of them had never seen combat before. They used weapons in ways that surprised even themselves. "How do you know how to do that?" one soldier asked another after they had captured an enemy position. "I don't know, I just do." The same thing was happening all over the battlefield. Human soldiers were rediscovering skills their ancestors had used in ancient wars. They were becoming what they had always been, the most dangerous species their planet had ever produced. War Commander Dexmol watched his invasion fall apart. His mighty fleet was being torn to pieces by ships that should not have been able to fight. His army was being defeated by soldiers who had appeared from nowhere. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "All ships, retreat." But Admiral Hayes was not done with them. "All ships, pursue the enemy. Do not let them escape to threaten other worlds." The human fleet chased the Vorthik across 3 star systems. They destroyed ship after ship, showing no mercy to an enemy that had shown no mercy to others. When the battle was over, the Vorthik invasion force was gone. Of the 500 ships that had attacked Mars, only 50 escaped. The mighty army that had conquered 17 worlds had been crushed by a species they thought was weak. Dexmol sent a desperate message to his superiors. "The humans are not what we thought. They are dangerous, more dangerous than anything we have faced before. Send the full fleet. Send everything we have." But it was too late. The sleeping war god had awakened, and it was angry. Humanity had tasted battle again, and they remembered why they had once been the masters of their world. Galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous enemy is the one who chooses peace until someone forces them to choose war. President Katie Sullivan stood before the United Earth Council, but she was not the same woman who had wanted to make peace with the Vorthik. The attack on New Haven and the battle at Mars had changed her. Her eyes were hard now, filled with a cold anger that scared even her closest advisors. "The Vorthik Empire has made their choice," she said to the assembled leaders. "They have chosen to be murderers, destroyers of worlds, killers of innocents. We will not simply defend ourselves. We will make sure they can never hurt anyone again." The council chamber was silent. These were people who had spent their lives avoiding war, working for peace. Now their president was talking about something else entirely. "Ma'am," said Councillor Marcus Webb, "perhaps we should reconsider. We've driven them back. Maybe now we can negotiate." Sullivan turned to look at him. "Councillor Webb, they have destroyed 17 civilizations. 17 entire species, gone forever. There is no negotiation with genocide." Admiral Hayes stepped forward with a datapad. "Ma'am, we've analyzed the information Captain Morrison recovered from the Vorthik computers. They have plans to kill every intelligent species in the galaxy. They see it as cleaning up the universe." "Then we clean them up instead," Sullivan said. "Admiral, begin Operation Prometheus." Operation Prometheus was unlike anything humanity had ever attempted. Instead of waiting for the enemy to attack, they would take the fight to the Vorthik across 12 star systems at once. Every human ship, every soldier, every weapon would be used in a coordinated assault that would destroy the enemy's ability to make war. General Collins had developed what he called the Earth Doctrine, a way of fighting that turned every human weakness into a strength. Humans were smaller than most aliens, so they could hide in places the enemy couldn't reach. They were adaptable, so they could fight in any environment. They were creative, so they could make weapons from anything. "We don't fight like the Vorthik," Collins explained to his officers. "They fight like machines, following rules and patterns. We fight like humans, unpredictable, flexible, deadly. Commander Lisa Martinez was now leading the assault on the Vorthic fortress world of Grimhold. This was where the aliens kept the survivors of the races they had conquered, using them as slaves to build their war machines. Remember, she told, her pilots were not just fighting to win. We're fighting to save people. The Vorthic have prisoners down there, what's left of 17 civilizations. We're going to set them free. The battle for Grimhold was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Human fighters moved through the enemy defenses like ghosts, appearing and disappearing before the Vorthic could react. They used the planet's own gravity to speed their ships, turning physics into a weapon. Colonel Ryan Foster led the ground assault. His soldiers moved through the fortress like water, flowing around obstacles, finding ways through defenses that should have been impossible to breach. How are they doing this? The Vorthic commander demanded as he watched his fortress being taken apart piece by piece. His aide looked at the tactical display with confusion. Sir, they're not following any military doctrine we know. They're making up new tactics as they fight. That was exactly what the humans were doing. Every battle taught them new ways to fight, and they shared this knowledge instantly through their communications network. What one human learned, they all learned. Major Ashley Turner was fighting in the prison levels, freeing alien slaves who had been worked nearly to death. She found beings from species she had never seen before, the survivors of worlds the Vorthic had destroyed. You're free, she told them through a translator. We're humans, and we're here to help you. One of the prisoners, a thin creature with large eyes, looked at her with amazement. Humans? But the Vorthic said you were weak, that you would be easy to kill. Ashley smiled grimly. The Vorthic were wrong about a lot of things. Back on Earth, Dr. Vasquez was documenting the changes in human society. The transformation was complete now. Humanity had become something new, something that combined their old peaceful nature with their ancient warrior instincts. We're not the same species we were a year ago, she reported to President Sullivan. The genetic memories have fully activated. Every human now has access to thousands of years of combat experience stored in their DNA. Are we still human? Sullivan asked the same question she had asked before. We're more human than ever, Dr. Vasquez replied. This is what we were always meant to be. Protectors, defenders, guardians of the innocent. We just forgot for a while. The war was spreading across the galaxy. Human fleets appeared in system after system, striking at Vorthic bases and freeing enslaved populations. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. War Commander Dexmol was now facing execution by his own people. The Vorthic High Command blamed him for the disaster at Mars, not understanding that the humans had changed into something completely different. You don't understand? He told his judges. These are not the same creatures we studied. They have become something else, something we cannot defeat with normal tactics. Impossible, replied High Commander Korthik. No species can change that quickly. You simply failed to properly analyze your enemy. Then send your own fleets, Dexmo said. See for yourself what these humans have become. The Vorthic did exactly that. They sent their greatest fleet, led by their best commander, to crush the human rebellion once and for all. General Zarvok commanded 800 ships and 2 million soldiers. He was confident that overwhelming force would succeed where subtlety had failed, but the humans were ready for them. Captain Morrison, now commanding a battle group of 50 ships, met the Vorthic fleet in the Tau Ceti system. The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned to fear humanity. All ships execute Plan Omega, Morrison ordered. The human ships spread out like a net, surrounding the much larger Vorthic fleet. Then they began to move in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully coordinated. Each ship knew exactly where the others would be, creating a deadly dance of destruction. They're using our own numbers against us, General Zarvok realized as he watched his ships collide with each other while trying to target the fast-moving human vessels. Tony Rodriguez, now the chief weapons designer for the human fleet, had created new types of weapons that turned the Vorthic's heavy armor into a weakness. His missiles could burrow through hull plating. His energy weapons could overload alien shields from the inside. "How do you know how to build these things?" Jake asked him. "I remember," Tony replied. "Somewhere in my mind, I remember my ancestors. Building weapons to fight creatures that were bigger and stronger than us. We've always been the small ones, the clever ones, the ones who had to think our way out of trouble." The battle lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Vorthic fleet was destroyed. General Zarvok's flagship drifted helplessly in space, its crew dead or dying, but the humans were not done. They had learned something important from the Vorthic computers: the location of the Empire's home worlds, the places where the alien leadership lived. "We end this now," President Sullivan announced. "We go to their home, and we finish what they started." Admiral Hayes assembled the largest fleet in human history. Every ship that could fly, every weapon that could fire, every soldier who could fight, all gathered for the final assault on the Vorthic Empire. The aliens, seeing this massive armada approaching their core worlds, made a desperate decision. They had one weapon left, something they had never used before, a planet-killer device called the World Breaker. "If we cannot have victory, we will have revenge," High Commander Korthek declared. "Target the human home world. Destroy Earth itself." The World Breaker was launched on a trajectory that would take it to Earth in 6 months. As it traveled through space, it sent out a signal that every human could hear, a countdown to the end of their world. But instead of causing panic, the countdown had a different effect. It made humanity angry. Not just angry, furious. The Vorthic had threatened the one thing that humans would never allow to be harmed: their home. "They want to destroy Earth?" President Sullivan said when she heard the news. "Then they've just made the biggest mistake in galactic history." The sleeping war god was fully awake now, and it was filled with rage. The Vorthic had poked a sleeping giant, and now they would face the consequences. The final battle was coming, and it would decide the fate of the galaxy. Humanity would either save their home world or die trying. But they would not go quietly into the dark. They were humans, and they had remembered what that meant. The World Breaker moved through space like a metal moon, its surface covered with weapons that could crack a planet in half. Inside its hull, Vorthic technicians worked to prepare the device that would end all life on Earth. They had 6 months to reach their target, 6 months to complete the revenge against humanity. But humanity was not sitting and waiting to die. "Every ship, every person, every weapon we have," President Sullivan announced to the galaxy. "We make our stand here at Earth, and we show these monsters what happens when they threaten our home." The call went out across human space. From the outer colonies, from the asteroid mines, from the deep space stations, they all came. Ships that had been built for peaceful purposes were converted into weapons of war. Civilians who had never held a gun learned to fight. Children who should have been in school were evacuated to safer worlds. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the U-ESA Retribution, watching the largest fleet in human history assemble around Earth. 10,000 ships of every size and type filled the space around the home planet. From tiny fighters to massive battleships, they all had one purpose: to stop the World Breaker. Captain Morrison arrived with his battle group just as the enemy weapon entered the solar system. His ship, the Starbound, had been transformed from a peaceful explorer into a deadly predator. Jake looked at his crew, Lisa, Tony, and Amy, and saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. "This is it," he said. This is what we've been preparing for. The World Breaker was protected by a fleet of Vorthic ships, but they were different from the armies that had attacked Mars. These were the elite forces of the Empire, their best ships and most experienced warriors. They knew this was their last chance to destroy humanity. War. Commander Thexmol, who had been given one final chance to redeem himself, led the Vorthic defense. He looked at the human fleet through his sensors and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. They outnumber us, his aide reported. Numbers don't matter, Thexmol replied, but his voice was not confident. We have the World Breaker. Once it destroys their planet, their will to fight will be broken. But Thexmol was wrong again. The threat to Earth had not broken human will. It had made them stronger. Every person in the fleet was fighting not just for victory, but for survival of their entire species. The battle began when the human fleet spread out in a formation that covered millions of kilometers. They moved like a living thing, each ship knowing its role in the larger plan. Lisa Martinez piloted her fighter, the Valkyrie, through the enemy formations. She had become more than just a pilot. She was an artist of destruction, painting patterns of death across the stars. This is Valkyrie 1, she radioed. I'm going for the World Breaker's main weapon. Negative, Valkyrie 1, Admiral Hayes replied. That thing is too heavily defended. Then I'll just have to be clever about it, Lisa said, and she dove her small ship into the storm of enemy fire. General Collins coordinated the fleet's movements from the command ship. He watched thousands of battles happening at once, each one crucial to saving Earth. Remember the Earth Doctrine, he broadcast to all ships. We don't fight their way. We fight our way. We make them react to us. The human ships moved in patterns that confused the Vorthic commanders. They appeared where they were not expected, struck where the enemy was weakest, and vanished before retaliation could come. Tony Rodriguez had designed special weapons for this battle, devices that could penetrate the World Breaker's heavy shields. But someone had to get close enough to use them, and that meant flying through the deadliest zone in the solar system. I'll do it, Jake volunteered. The Starbound is fast enough. Captain, that's suicide, Amy protested. Maybe, but if we don't try, Earth dies anyway. Jake piloted his ship toward the World Breaker, dodging weapons fire that could vaporize mountains. Behind him, the human fleet fought with a fury that amazed even their enemies. The Vorthic had expected to face a desperate defense, ships fighting to delay the inevitable. Instead, they found themselves battling an enemy that fought like they had already won, like they knew something the aliens did not. That something was simple. Humans would rather die fighting than live as slaves. War Commander Thexmol watched, his fleet being torn apart by forces that should not have been able to match his superior technology. How are they doing this? He demanded. Sir, they're not following any standard military tactics. They're improvising everything. Improvising? Yes. Sir, they seem to be making up new strategies in the middle of battle. It's like they're learning how to fight us better every second. That was exactly what was happening. The human fleet was connected by a communication network that shared information instantly. When one ship discovered an enemy weakness, every ship knew about it immediately. Dr. Vasquez, watching the battle from Earth, saw something that amazed her. The humans were not just fighting as individuals. They were fighting as a single organism, millions of minds working together toward one goal. They've become something new, she whispered. A collective intelligence focused entirely on survival and victory. Jake's ship reached the World Breaker's outer defenses. The alien weapon was huge, the size of a small moon, covered with shields and weapons. But Tony's devices had found a weakness, a small port where the weapon drew in space dust to convert into energy. I see it, Jake said. Amy, send the target data to the fleet. Tony, arm your special weapons." "Already done, Captain," Tony replied. "One shot, and their main weapon is finished." But as Jake lined up for his attack, Vorthic fighters surrounded his ship. There were too many of them, and his ship was too damaged from the flight through their defenses. "Captain, we can't make it," Lisa said from her own fighter nearby. "There are too many enemies." That's when something unexpected happened. Ships from all across the human fleet broke formation and came to help. Fighters, cruisers, even civilian vessels. They all converged on the Worldbreaker to protect Jake's ship. "This is Admiral Hayes to all ships," came the voice over the radio. "Cover the Starbound, whatever it takes." The space around the Worldbreaker became a storm of fire and metal as hundreds of human ships fought to protect one small vessel carrying the weapon that could save Earth. Lisa flew her fighter like a demon, destroying enemy ships that got to. Close to Jake, other pilots followed her lead, creating a protective screen around the Starbound. "Now, Jake," she shouted. "Take the shot." Jake fired Tony's special weapon into the Worldbreaker's intake port. The device penetrated deep into the alien weapons core and exploded with the force of a small star. The Worldbreaker shuddered, its lights flickering as internal systems failed. The weapon that was supposed to destroy Earth began to tear itself. "Part from the inside. Direct hit," Amy reported. "The Worldbreaker is finished, but the victory came at a terrible cost." Hundreds of human ships had been destroyed protecting Jake's mission. Thousands of brave people had died to save their world. Commander Thexmol watched his ultimate weapon die and knew that the Vorthic Empire was finished. But humans had done something no other species had ever managed. They had united their entire race in a single purpose and fought with the fury of cornered animals. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "This battle is lost." But Admiral Hayes was not letting them escape again. "All ships pursue? We finish this today." The human fleet chased the remaining Vorthic ships out of the solar system and across 3 star systems. They showed no mercy to an enemy that had shown no mercy to others. When the last Vorthic ship was destroyed or captured, the war was over. The empire that had destroyed 17 civilizations was finished, broken by a species they had thought was weak. President Sullivan addressed the galaxy from Earth. Her voice carried to every inhabited world. "The Vorthic Empire is defeated. Their fleets are destroyed. Their leaders are captured or dead. Never again will they threaten peaceful species." But she had more to say. "Humanity has learned something important in this war. We have learned that peace is precious, but it must be protected. We will serve as guardians for those who cannot protect themselves. We will watch for threats that might arise." The galaxy listened to her words with a mixture of relief and fear. Humanity had saved them from the Vorthic, but in doing so, they had revealed themselves as something terrifying, a species that could become the most dangerous force in the galaxy when threatened. Dr. Vasquez published her final report on humanity's transformation. "We have not lost our peaceful nature," she wrote. "We have simply learned to combine it with our warrior heritage. We are still the same species that chose peace over war, but now we know what we are capable of when peace is not enough." Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars. The war was over, but he knew that humanity had changed forever. They were no longer the quiet, peaceful species that had first ventured into space. "What happens now?" Lisa asked. "Now we make sure this never happens again," Jake replied. "We watch the stars, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves." The sleeping war god had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had remembered what they truly were, not just peaceful explorers, but guardians, protectors, warriors who fought only when they had to, but who fought with the fury of a species that had conquered their own world through millions.